Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be going over Cavalier Clash 6, which is taking place this weekend, coming in at an A+ here, our biggest NA event of the weekend. And for your top 16 seeds, you're going to have Jazzo, Omega, Mr. E, and Tarek in 13th. Beast Mode Paul, Candle, Pocket, and Jackal in 9th. In 7th place, you're going to have Wrath and Dabuzz. 5th is shinymark and Cola. 4th is Light, 3rd is Gluttony, 2nd is Syrup, and projected to win the entire thing is Spargo. And we're going to be starting with winners round 2 just because a majority of these matches is just like, yeah, the top player is expected to win. But I do want to go over potential upsets in this winners round 1. The first one, I think it could be Brujo over Omega. Now, I definitely still favor Omega here because that matchup is not good for King K. Rool. But I got to give credit to Brujo whenever I see him because he's like really, really good at this game. He absolutely can make K. Rool work as a character. He's fundamentally good enough where in those kind of neutral interactions, he is able to play footsies with the opponent as that big Crocodile. He used the tools of K-Roll extremely well. I think it's possible. Omega's a really tough opponent to beat, though, I will say. But I definitely wanted to give him a shout. I think Jen has a chance against Wrath. I don't know how specifically good Jen is at the Palutena matchup, but I do think that Palutena is decent against Sonic. You definitely have tools to disrupt that character. You got the invincible dash attack. You got the invincible back here. I think your advantage state is pretty solid as well. Still definitely would be favoring Wrath there. And again, not really expecting an upset here, but I want to shout it out anyway. I think free K-Flock over shinymark is definitely a possibility. I don't think Zelda beats Pikachu. I'm not trying to tell you that, but it's a very uncommon matchup. Not one that you're going to find often. He's not going to have his flowcharts down, presumably, for a character like Zelda. You do have tools to get kind of deal with neutral special, like Down B does a really good job at getting rid of it. Obviously, you have a Reflector, and then Pikachu is a very light character. If you even just guess right once or twice with a Lightning Kick or a Down Air, he is just going to explode. So I don't think this is going to happen, but as of someone who's played Pikachu, I think seeing a Zelda in your bracket definitely can be a little bit scary. This is absolutely an explosive character if you aren't patient enough, but that's like what shinymark is paid for, so he should be fine there. I also want to give a shout out to Haunter over Mystery. Again, not because I think it's going to happen. I don't really think any of these upsets are actually going to happen. At least I wouldn't be predicting them. But Haunter's really good. He's a really good Steve player from Guatemala. He's going to be coming alongside shinymark here. I don't think this is the first time he's traveled to NA, but it's the first time he's traveled to NA in this year. So I think Mystery will probably beat him because Lucina, I think, does pretty well against Steve. You have the disjoints to actually just play neutral against that character pretty solidly. But Haunter hits really, really hard. So Mystery's going to have to be careful. Really quick, there's actually 3 more matchups that I think could be possible upsets. I think Skeleton losing to Beast Mode Paul is definitely a possibility. You had him losing to T at Genesis, and T couldn't even read the menu, but now T is also a top 20 player in the world. But still, Kazuya obviously has that Reflect, which will actually just explode here at like any percent because it puts like a crazy multiplier on the projectiles. If you can make the distance as Kazuya, you are going to get that kill in one hit. I think Beast Football should be fine, especially considering that he just lost to T. That matchup should be fresh in his mind, one that he's working on. But definitely a matchup where you could get just absolutely screwed in a second with your, like, reflected a projectile at 40, and then electric, and 2 of your stocks have just disappeared by 2 moves. I think that Susu has a pretty good chance of taking an upset over Jackal. I don't think that matchup is as bad as I thought it was, like, literally prior to this week where Masha, I forget the Steve player at the end of the beating, but the way that he used down B, side B, and back air in that matchup, you definitely have tools as Wolf to win that one, but it is still an uphill battle. Steve is just going to be getting rewarded more on hit, and you have to play that weird neutral with the blocks as Wolf. You have some tools to break the blocks. Again, you have Nair, you have back air. They're not horrible tools for it, but it's just not the ideal situation for Wolf. So definitely a possibility there for Susu to make the upset. And I think if an upset is going to happen, I would probably predict Susu over Jackal for this round 1. And then the final one I want to mention is Ploopy over Jazzo. Game & Watch versus Ken, I feel like would be a really brawly matchup where they just absolutely wail on each other. And Game & Watch is obviously going to be heavily favored in terms of defensive options, but I think Ken is going to like explode Game & Watch, especially in a matchup like this. You have amazing kill power. Game & Watch is extremely light. I still favor Jazzo. Again, I favor pretty much every single of the top seeds that I've mentioned in these round 1s, but I just wanted to mention these possible upsets because these players are all really, really good. So now we've gone over all the possible upsets I think are going to happen in Winners Round 1, or could happen in Winners Round 1. Let's move on to that Winners Round 2, starting off with Spargo versus Omega. And this should be a free win for Spargo. Maybe free isn't the right word, but he just has so much experience in this matchup with MK Leo that I just expect him to be very, very confident against Joker, but that could come to bite him in the butt. It's not like Omega and the MK Leo are the same player. Omega definitely uses the gun a little bit differently than Leo does, and Omega is good enough to take out a player of Spargo's caliber. Do not be fooled in that aspect. This is absolutely a set that he can win, but it's just a set where Spargo has like so much experience on his side that he should just be the heavy favorite, and he is the heavy favorite for this one. Then you're gonna have Wrath versus Pocket, and I would expect Wrath to win this one based off the matchup. But in recent times, Steve players have been downplaying how bad Sonic and Steve is. Like, I don't know if maybe it's just Akola, because I know Akola thinks that matchup is even. Maybe he's just speaking too loud for the other Steve players, but it feels like the Steve players are a lot more optimistic about that Sonic matchup, and it's probably just a development in how they actually are playing neutral against that character, because I think what was a big problem of how people used to play Steve Sonic is once they got Diamond, for some reason they had it in their mind that they had to start approaching the Sonic player. No, you don't. It's like, you are playing to win, man. You should be camping behind that wall for the entire game, forcing Sonic to approach it, because Sonic is not the best at breaking the wall. Like, that's the one thing in the matchup where he definitely does not excel. I mean, disjoints as well, but it's Sonic disjoint. I mean, the stage is basically his disjoint when you really think about it. So, I think that this is a matchup where, on paper, Sonic should win, but I think the Steve players have been putting in so much work for it, and I know that Pocket is one of them, that I'm going to have my faith. Ignore that. I'm going to have my faith in the upset here, and I'm going to be going with Pocket to win this one. And then you're going to have Spargo versus Pocket, and I mean, you just expect Spargo to win that one. He has so much experience against Steve, and like, obviously it's not against Pocket. He hasn't played Pocket in quite some time, but I don't think it's really going to matter. He's good at the matchup. Next up is going to be Light versus Jazzo, and I gotta say, for the guy that decided to not go to the Luminosity event that he was signed up for, he came to your event, he stuck his neck out. You gave him this bracket? This one? You gave him either Game & Watch or Ken into Pikachu? Come on, guys. What are we doing here? But on a real note, I do think that Light should be favored against Jazzo. Yes, the matchup is very bad for Fox. You have none of that pressure that you normally get on People's Shield because Ken just, like, turns around and then jabs you and you get upbeat at 50% and die. You also just don't have any longevity because, as I said, you know, jab 50 at die. So it's a really tough match for Fox. You just have to play it like really carefully. Basically, if you get hit once, you explode. But Light is amazing at that. He's been playing against the best Steve players in the world for like 3 years at this point. Same thing with Game & Watch as well. So Light is very good at not getting hit, playing to his win cons, ensuring that he's not being too over aggressive when he needs to. I think he's going to win. It's going to be a very difficult matchup, though. Then you're going to have Shinymark against Jackal. I think Shinymark should win this one, unless, of course, you could have this being Susu against Jackal. As I said, I do think Susu is the most likely person to make an upset in this winners round 1. If it's Susu against Shinymark, I expect Shinymark to win. He looked really good in his set against Akola, and I also just don't think that Susu is going to have the experience in the Pikachu matchup to beat a player of Shinymark's caliber. Now, I don't know if Jackal has that experience either, but I do know that I think Wolf is a little bit of a scarier character for a player like Shinymark specifically, because Jackal is a heat check player. He is going to just throw out a forward strong, or forward smash, excuse me, if he thinks it's going to hit. He's going to go for a dash attack or a back air read. He is just going to go for a commitment. Against a character like Pikachu, that could be extremely lethal. A forward air into a back air just kills Pikachu at like 60% near the ledge. This is a character that you can absolutely explode, and Jackal is the type of player that can make the callouts needed to explode a character like Pikachu. Now, with all that being said, I still favor Shinymark, but if I was Shinymark, Jackal would be like one of the last people that I want to see in my bracket path, really in any part of the tournament. And then finally, you're going to have Light versus Shinymark, and I do think that Shinymark should win this one. I don't believe that we've ever had Light and Shinymark actually play. I'll fact check that if it's wrong, but the last time we saw Light play against a really good Pikachu player, it was Esam, and to be fair, really long time ago, didn't go super well. I think that matchup has only gotten worse for Fox. Like, Pikachu just kills Fox in one hit. The neutral, I think, is a little bit harder for Fox since Pikachu is so much more defensive now and can, like, go under the stage, doesn't really get ledge trap anymore. So, I think this is a matchup that Shinymark should be winning, but it's not one that Light is bad at. It's one of his worst matchups. He's going to be prepared for it, but it's an uphill battle. And in ProofBlock, really quick, I want to point out Light and Shinymark have played, and it did go into Light's favor game 5 at the Luminosity Invitational too. So definitely something to be considered. I still think Shinymark is going to win, but big points for Light. He's clearly comfortable in the matchup. Next up is going to be Syrup versus Tarek, and I think Greninja has the tools to beat a character like Steve. I could even see him winning that matchup, probably more even though. But you have a move like Fourier, which is going to outrange Steve's stuff, as well as being a nice disjoint to break the blocks, hits pretty hard as well. You have the mobility, which is really important to be able to maneuver around things like Minecart, and Anvil have easy whip punishes on them. You have the damage output, I think, to contest a character like Steve if you're doing your Greninja combos right. And let me tell you, Tarek is doing those Greninja combos right. He is going to be hitting you for at least like 50, 70% if he's getting a good down tilt or a good dash attack, even a good nair, honestly. And personally, I don't be converting anything off Greninja nair. So there's a lot of things in this matchup that are decent for Greninja. He has the tools to win it, but it's really, really hard for me to bet against Syrup, and that's honestly all this comes down to. I've just been so impressed by Syrup at his recent events. He's been the best Steve player in America. He's been unbelievable. Like, he's just had such a massive level up in this past year that makes it really, really hard to bet against. Tarek, obviously an amazing player. I think he can get it done. And honestly, it hurts my heart to bet against Tarek as well, especially in a matchup where I think Greninja does pretty decent, but Syrup has just been such a Goliath recently. Then you're going to have DeBuzz versus Beast Mode Paul. And I would expect Beast Mode Paul actually to win this one. I was going to say DeBuzz, but then I thought about it for more than 1 second. And I think Hero would destroy Luma in 0.5 seconds. Like, the second Luma gets set out, forward smash, and he's dead. And obviously, you can do other things aside from forward smash, but like side B destroys Luma, jab, forward tilt, all of your aerials. The only thing about that matchup that has me a little bit worried, and why I was initially going to say DeBuzz wins, is you do have down B as reflector for Rosalina, but also Hero just has like a sword and a way better disjoint than Rosalina does, and he's going to get the buffs like Accelerato, so he's going to have a massive movement diff. He's going to be way easier at killing when he gets the buffs as well. And plus, you're also not really going to need to worry about Luma, as I've already said, especially if you have the buffs, though, because it's actually just going to explode in one hit. So I do think that Beast Mode Paul should be winning that one. Then you're going to have Syrup versus Beast Mode Paul. And again, I'm going to be going with Syrup to win this one, even though I think the matchup is decent for Hero. Could even be argued maybe winning for Hero. You got the tools, you got the disjoint, you have a massive projectile that you can use to contest Steve with, but Syrup has just been really, really good. And our final top seed is going to be Glutonine. His first opponent is going to be Mystery. Now, I don't think he's ever played against Mr. E before. Let me check that right now, actually. He has never played against Mr. E before, but he has played a lot of Sense against Leon, and he's won a lot of Sense against Leon, over 50 of them to be exact. Now, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to beat Mystery. I do think that Mystery is better than Leon, and I also think that this matchup can definitely be a little bit tricky for Wario because you have that massive disjoint for Lucina. But I think Glutonine is honestly just going to handle it. I think he's just going to know exactly what he needs to do. He's going to know the flowcharts for this character off stage. He's going to know how to weave in and out of combat. The timings are going to be a little bit different. He's going to have to get used to that. But Glutonine, one of the best players at adapting in the world, I think is going to be able to figure it out. Then you're going to have Cola against Candle. And Cola's probably just going to go Cloud and win here. I would honestly be surprised if he went Roy. I don't think that matchup is honestly great for Roy. Like, I would still favor Roy if I had to favor one character in Olimar Roy, but I just don't think the sword is as good at destroying the Pikmin as you would have for a character like, you know, Cloud, where one forward air and it's like their entire generation is just dead. So I do think that Cola should win that one. Probably going to be the Cloud there. Then you're going to have Glutonine against Cola, and Glutonine has only ever beaten Cola at Genesis, which I think is really funny. And if you notice, if you look in the top left of your screen, this isn't Genesis, so I am going to be going with Cola to win that one. And yes, that's all the logic you're getting. And y'all know the drill at this point. We don't do the loose side of the bracket just because the majority of these matchups are not going to happen. So I've taken the players that are most likely to top 8, and we've given them the percentages. You're going to have the confidence here with Spargo, shinymark, Syrup, and Cola. Those are the guys that pick the top 8 through the winner side. Then you're going to have someone confident with Light, Pocket, Wrath, and Beast with Paul. And those are the guys that pick top 8 through the loser side of the bracket. Specifically, you're going to have Light top 8 for this part of the bracket right here, because I do think he's going to lose to shinymark. And this isn't going to be Beast with Paul. This is going to be DeBuzz, or I think it is going to be DeBuzz. Tarek as well could definitely make it there, and I would expect Light to win against both of those opponents. Then right here, this isn't going to be Wrath against Candle. It's going to be Pocket against either Candle or Mystery, because as I said, I think Pocket is going to make that upset over Wrath, and I do expect Pocket to beat both of those opponents. Mystery is probably the hardest of the ones that are available. Maybe the Steve Ditto would be a little bit tough for Onin. Or Pocket. I don't think so. I think they should be fine there, but it might be if Susu makes a little bit of a run. So this is where you're going to have Wrath popping out. I do think that he should beat these people in the loser side in Skeleton and Omega. Actually, I was going to say it might be a little bit tricky, but I just think that Joker does better against Sonic than at least the Joker players think. And this is going to be not Cola, but Glutonine, because I do think that Cola is going to pull off that upset in the winner side. And if this is Glutonine against Wrath, you do have to have 2 upsets to get to this point, but I would expect Glutonine to bow out at 9th place. He hasn't been able to be a top-level Sonic in quite some time at this point. That is a very difficult matchup for Wario. I shouldn't say that he hasn't beaten any top level Sonics. He might have beaten one in Europe, but hasn't beaten Sonics recently. Lost his last 3 encounters up against Ken. Now, he has never played Wrath. Well, he has played Wrath, but before Wrath was like a super prominent player. Last time they played was like Frostbite, I think, which Wrath did win, to be fair. But it's a tough matchup for Gluttony. The only thing that Wario really has is like down air, honestly, as an edge guarding tool, maybe a neutral tool as well. It can be pretty solid. But aside from that, it feels like Sonic just wins in every single aspect. So I do expect Wrath to send Gluttony home at 9th place. And our final person getting into the top 8 is going to be Beast Mode Paul right here. Most likely opponents are going to be Jackal or Jazzo. Jackal's probably the scariest of them. Could be Haunter as well, just because he has a reflector on Wolf. But honestly, I've just been so impressed by Beast Mode Paul that I think he's going to be able to handle pretty much everyone that he gets in this part of the loser side. Then you're going to have the streak with Gluttony and Terra. Really quick, I want to interrupt that. Susu also made top 8 at Gamescom. I just forgot, so that's the reason that they're not in the streak tier. It's just bad memory on my part. Both of them made top 8 at Gamescom. I guess so did Spargo, so he's also on a streak, but he usually streaks. We're used to it. But an EU streak to an NA streak doesn't always happen for EU players. As I said, 2 very specific things need to happen for Gluttony to not make top 8 of this bracket. Pocket needs to beat Wrath, and I think Gluttony needs to lose to Kozla. I think that's really the only way he doesn't get top 8. Any other combination, I would expect this guy in winner's side. He just happens to have a Sonic in losers the way my bracket goes. And then Tarek, it's a little less bracket specific. I think he's just going to need to turn up that day. He is going to have to make an upset over someone that like I wouldn't expect him to beat traditionally. If it has to happen, though, I think it definitely could happen over Syrup. He would still have to get another one in the winner's side, unfortunately, over Beast Mode Paul or DeBuzz. But I also think Greninja has decent tools against Hero as a character. You are very fast. So I think if Tarek makes top 8, it's honestly probably going to be through the winner side with beating Syrup and Beast Mode Paul. Loser side, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but definitely still possible. This guy is very, very good. And then everyone else, you got Susu, DeBuzz, Omega, Jazzo, Mystery. Omega, again, he's really good. Haunter, Danny, Brujo, and Monty. Just because they're not on this list doesn't mean that they necessarily won't top 8. It's not like your traditional major. I'm like, these are the guys that are absolutely going to be getting into top 8. But I am pretty confident you're going to see a majority of these players in the top 8. The only one that's a little bit weird is Gluttony, but my bracket just happened to screw him over. And we have finally arrived at winner side top 8. As always, this graphic is made by the lovely Memorization. His link will be down below. Be sure to check him out and sub while you're down there. But our first matchup in this winner side is going to be Spargo versus shinymark. And as you can see, it is a very, very tough head-to-head for shinymark. 6-1 online or offline, and then 32-9 with all of their sets. So it's just very dominant for Spargo. And I think there's a bit of a mental barrier here for shinymark. Obviously, there's a very physical barrier, and Spargo just like forward airing him and back airing him. But I think shinymark, like whenever he gets into that match against Spargo, he's playing a good enough character. He is good enough to beat someone of that caliber, but he's just second guessing himself. He's not fully committing to the options that he would against someone else just because of the player he's playing against. So I do think that it's maybe a bit of a factor of why shinymark has been struggling so much against this guy, but also he's the best player in the world. So that could be it as well. Probably not, though, probably unrelated. Then you're going to have Syrup up against Cola, and this one's actually really funny. They've only played once, and it was at the Smash World Tour all the way back in 2021. And you did actually have Syrup playing the Steve in that matchup as well, so it wasn't like it was Ness against Roy. We have no frame of mind, but that's not really a useful bit of information. And I would expect it to be Roy from Cola. It might be Cloud. The matchup for Cloud is definitely better than the matchup for Roy, but if it's Cloud, I think Syrup is going to win, just because I don't think that Cloud or Cola Cloud is going to be on the level that needs to be to take it a player like Syrup. But I also think if he plays Roy, Syrup is just going to win. I just think Syrup is going to win. As I said earlier in the video, this guy has been unbelievable. I just have so much faith in him, and he's coming to this event extremely hot off a 3rd place at Let's Make Big Moves. I just think he's going to win it. I have so much faith in this guy for this event. In the loser side, you're going to have Pocket up against Light. And Light is like one of, if not the best players in the world at the Steve match. If it wasn't for how well Hurt's been doing against Cola recently, I would say that Light is the best player in the world up against Steve. But Hurt has been doing Cola recently. But also, Hurt plays a character like Snake, which is maybe the best character in the game, up against Steve, because he is amazing at contesting minecart. Steve or Snake is like so good at contesting minecart, just usually wins or trades against that character. Light is the best player in the world at contesting minecart. He is just insane. Maybe not contesting is the right word. Avoiding is the word that I'm looking for. He will never get hit by a minecart. He just knows exactly when you want to do it, and he'll just jump over it or run under it. Doesn't take too big of a commitment, waits what you're going to see afterwards, and then goes for a punch. It's the exact same thing with Anvil as well. I think it's just because he's on Fox as a character that he's not able to get these massive punches off a minecart or off an Anvil. But even if he was a character like Wolf that could just commit with a back air when he sees someone minecarting, he would be destroying people, and he already is destroying every single Steve player that he goes up against. Light is playing Fox, a character that gets jabbed by Steve and dies, and he's got a winning record on a majority of the top Steve players. He's amazing at this match, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire world, and I do think that he is going to win that set over Pocket, and it's not even because he 3-0'd him a month ago. It's literally just because he's so good at the matchup. Then you're going to have Beast Mode Paul up against Wrath, and this is definitely a bit of a tricky one for Beast Mode Paul. Sonic, really, really overwhelming for Hero, just runs that character down, never gets a chance to actually utilize the menu, except, like, I guess when you have Accelerado, it's a bit of even playing field there. And then for Sephiroth, I don't think he'll go Sephiroth against Sonic. He might, though. It's not like Hero is an amazing choice anyway, and you do have a massive dish on it, but you just have to be, like, so incredibly precise, like, frame perfect precision, which if anyone could do it with Sephiroth, it low-key would be Beast Mode Paul. He's, like, amazing with that character. It does not get talked about how much he owns with this Seph, but regardless of the character, it's an uphill battle for Beast Mode Paul, and I think it's one that Wrath's going to win. Next up, you're going to have Cola versus Light, which is a certified banger alert. And the last time that they ended up playing, you did have Light come out of top. I believe it was at the Lit Invitational. And because of that, plus the fact that I think Light Swarm has been a little bit better recently. Like, yeah, Cola definitely did better at Genesis. That Sonic one is insane. But you did have Light with a really solid run at LMBM. I am going to be giving Light the benefit of the doubt here. But this is like a really tough one to call. It should be a super close 50-50. And more importantly, absolute gigabanger of a set there. Then you're going to have Shiny Mark up against Wrath, and I would definitely expect Shiny Mark to win this one. I think Pikachu is potentially Sonic's hardest matchup. I still think it's Fox, but Pikachu is up there because at least with Fox, like, you can edge guard him super hard. With Pikachu, there isn't like a clear just do this and you'll win the matchup. And you also have Pikachu being a slightly better camper than Sonic. You have Pikachu with maybe even slightly better edge guarding in that specific matchup, like against each other. Like, it's not a great matchup for Sonic. Now, with all that being mine, it's even. It's still Sonic. But with an even matchup, like, they're not used to that. They're going to crumble. Shiny Mark's going to come out on top. Really quickly, I also just want to show y'all that Shiny Mark and Wrath do have a very extensive history, but they have actually never played offline. So I kind of really hope that we get to see this set now. So we've got our top four, Spargo versus Syrup in the winner's side, and then Light versus Shiny Mark in the loser's side. For Spargo Syrup, Spargo should win. Cloud back air is better than Ness. And obviously, the Steve matchup is really, really difficult up against Cloud. He's also never beaten Spargo, except when Spargo played Byleth in an online event one time, and he was playing Ness as well. So if it's Ness against Byleth, I definitely think that Syrup has a chance. Any other alignment of characters, I would expect Spargo to come out on top. Then you're going to have Light up against Shiny Mark. And I misspoke earlier, and by misspoke, I mean lied. He has played a Pikachu player more recent than Esam, and that Pikachu player was Shiny Mark himself. And Light came out on top in their most recent encounter at the Luminosity Smash Invitational 2. But that doesn't change my answer, because that was also the first time that Shiny Mark ever played up against Light. And I think he's going to be a lot more prepared for that matchup now. Because prior to that, it was probably just like, oh, Pikachu Fox, free win. I get a free win here. Not against Light. Nothing is a free win against Light, even if your jab kills him at 0%. So now, Shiny Mark, knowing that, played him once, he's going to be a lot more prepared for this matchup. He's going to have those flowcharts on deck. I just think he's going to have done his homework this time around to be prepared against Light. And also, that matchup is just really, really, really bad. In the losers finals, you're going to have Syrup up against Shiny Mark. And as I kind of alluded to earlier when I was talking about, I think it was Susu, Shiny Mark is really, really good against Steve. He definitely showed that off when he played up against Acola. And he's just going to be so much more experienced in this matchup than the vice versa. I didn't even think about it till now, but Haunter GV is his main practice partner, and he's a very high-level Steve player. So this is a matchup that I honestly wouldn't be super surprised if the Ness came out from Syrup. And if the Ness comes out from Syrup, I still think Shiny Mark is going to win. I do think that this is one where Shiny Mark just comes out on top because he's amazing against both of those characters. Ness is a character that I think used to do amazing against Pikachu, and I still think that he beats Pikachu, but you just die the second that you get hit off stage. Now, the flowcharts are just too strong against that character, so your neutral's a lot worse because you don't have access to T-Jolt, but Ness is very volatile, so it's not as big of a deal. It's just the matchup isn't as bad as it seems to be. I think Shiny Mark can overcome it if it's the Ness, and I think the experience is definitely going to come in droves if it's the Steve for Syrup. So Shiny Mark comes out on top. Then you got Spargo versus Shiny Mark, and it's just the exact same things that I said earlier. I believe in Shiny Mark to win this, but I'm not going to predict him to win it until I've actually seen it. Spargo has earned that at the very least. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The sport has been absolutely unreal. As late as anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.